On today's episode of Survival Dispatch Academy, we're having a look at flashlights for just about every purpose you can imagine. Before we jump into flashlights, I've got a few housekeeping things to review with you. Number one, we have broken off Survival Dispatch News on its own channel. There's a link down below. If you could go on over there and subscribe, we'd appreciate it. First video will be launching on Monday. Number two, if you could help support our sponsor, William Tell Archery. This is one of their badass mini striker crossbows. We would greatly appreciate it. If you support them, they support us. Gives us the ability to bring you more quality content. Number three, we just launched the new Survival Dispatch website, survivaldispatch.com. Check it out for the latest updates. We've got a lot of articles over there. You can also find all of our videos there in addition to being here on YouTube. Number four, the conflicted question of the day. We've got a great response to these. If you could support these guys as well, we would appreciate it. I'm going to read this question now and answer it at the end of the video. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and Venezuela have declared war against the United States due to the death of the dollar, which led to a complete collapse of the global economy. They blame the U.S. government for ruining the financial markets and are using propaganda to get the support of their own people. Your country's president has gone on TV and declared that there are rough times ahead and that all citizens need to prepare for World War III. What would you do after hearing that? Again, circle back at the end of the video and discuss that. So let me share my screen here and show you a couple things that we've got. So we kind of came up with this criteria here as far as evaluating flashlights. You can consider today's video a brief on part of the collection of flashlights that I personally have. So I'm not going to read this stuff off on screen. Y'all can do that on your own. Suffice it to say, we tried to take a number of different things into consideration as I went through my own subjective process of deciding which of these flashlights that I have are thumbs up, which ones are neither, which ones are thumbs down. I'll also add that we went to onelumen.com. They're kind of like the authority on flashlight testing, and grabbed some categories off of there. But there's also some measurements, those sort of things that we got from onelumen.com. Quick disclaimer, there are no Olight or Streamlight units in my collection that I'm going to cover. We've had warranty issues with both of them, not resolved to our satisfaction. We're talking stuff that was DOA, dead on arrival, right out of the box. You may have had good experience with Olight and Streamlight. We haven't, therefore we're not going to promote them on our channel. So let's get into the big boys here. We'll do the big ones first. So this is the Imalent MS18. It's ranked the third most powerful flashlight in the world with 100,000 lumens. I can tell you that when you first turn this thing on and you go through some of the different settings, so right there, that's 700 lumens, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 22,000, 30,000, 60,000 lumens. Double click it, bam, that is 100,000 lumens. And you can probably hear the fan running, and darn near blinding myself with this thing. Must set it over here. Gonna leave it on, but must set it over here because one of the things that I want to show you is what the temperature gets up to with this temperature gun. The competitor is rated the number 4 strongest flashlight by onelumens.com. It is the Acebeam X75. Very simple to operate. So that's the base mode. I can click it one more time and go turbo mode, which is 80,000 lumens. So I'm going to set it down here as well and let it run. Y'all should still be able to hear the MS18 running. I'm actually getting a blast of heat off of it as I speak. I can tell you right now, I can actually see smoke coming off of it. I kid you not. Not sure what that's all about. That hasn't happened before, but you may be actually able to see some of the smoke coming up towards my face. Okay, so that's a new one. It's sitting on a marble top here, so it shouldn't catch anything on fire. But again, the smoke coming off of this unit right now is pretty crazy. It's so crazy that I'm going to take a quick video with my phone. I did not expect this to happen, so I wasn't prepared for this. So I'll roll this video in as B-roll, but pretty crazy the amount of smoke that's coming off of this thing right now. So set that down. Hopefully the whole thing doesn't burst into flames. When you see the B-roll, you'll see what I mean. There's an incredible amount of smoke coming off of this thing right now. Let's talk ease of use. The X75 has a USB-C port on it. You don't need a special charger. It is compatible with new PDW100 fast charging. But another thing that I like with that USB-C port in the X75 is this 4100 milliamp hour battery, and I can use it as a power bank. So if I take that flashlight with me somewhere, I can always use it to charge my phone. The fan on the X75 can be easily replaced by you, whereas the fan on the MS18 would have to be sent back to the factory to be changed. So I fight the MS18. It's big, bulky, heavy, has a proprietary charger, takes a long time to charge, 5 hours from dead. It actually took us 5 hours and about 15 minutes from completely dead. If the fan dies, by the way, in the MS18, you should be able to see the smoke right there. I'm telling you, the heat this thing throws is unbelievable. The fan cannot be replaced by anybody but the factory. So moving on from there, I'm going to say that the X75 is the winner at $399 versus $669. Those are current prices off of Amazon right now. And part of the reason that we're choosing it as a winner, we'll see what the temperature is right now. So the Imalent right now is 144 degrees. The X75, it's saying right now 86 degrees. We got 80 degrees earlier. And honestly, I think that the higher reading, sorry, gone there now. Let me see. 83 degrees. Honestly, it's above 80 degrees because it's sitting right beside the MS18 and the heat is going in that direction and hitting it. God forbid that you touch anywhere else on this unit. Again, you should be able to see some crazy smoke coming off of this thing. We're looking at temperatures in the range of 197 degrees on the front of that unit. More than enough to cause damage to you, burn your skin. So here's the deal, is not only does the X75 have the advantages over the MS18 that I've already mentioned, the MS18 is only good for its maximum rating of 100,000 lumens for a brief period of time, maybe 20, 30 seconds. Then it scales it back. You get a warning on the little screen. Whereas the X75, and by the way, that smoke is not coming off the X75. It's coming off of the MS18 beside it. But the X75 will stay at full power indefinitely, as far as we know, until the battery runs out, maybe. We've kept it at full power for, I want to say, 20 minutes nonstop. Had no issues whatsoever. So I'm going to turn these guys off because I can't even hear myself think over the fan in the MS18. It is not comfortable to touch beyond here. This section out here, as you saw, 150, 160 degrees. The perimeter at the top here is almost 200 degrees. This thing's an interesting concept, but I don't know of its viability, to be honest with you. Whereas the X75, and again, that's smoke coming off of the MS18. It actually, wow, holy crap. The marble top on my desk is so hot you can't even touch it. But no fan running on the X75, runs for a long time. I showed these a couple days ago on Survival Dispatch News. A few people were asking about them, so there's a little bit more information on the two big boys in my collection. There are two more flashlights from Imalent that are ranked number 1 and 2 in the world as far as most powerful flashlights are concerned. I don't have them, and all I can tell you is that other people's reviews say the same thing. It'll come out of the hole at its max rating, say 100,000 lumens, and then 20, 30 seconds later, it'll dial it back to somewhere around 60,000 lumens. So moving on from there, sorry, I skipped a little bit too far ahead. Let's talk pocket EDC flashlights. I always have a flashlight on me. It's a great idea for a number of purposes. You may have heard me mention WOFT before, where our family's trained. Pardon me. They've got some great courses on how you can use a flashlight in transition spaces like gas stations, where you can interrupt somebody's OODA loop, potentially blind them, even potentially smack them with it. But I'll go through some of my favorite EDC flashlights here. So this little guy from SOL, and I know it doesn't stand for shit out of luck, but every time I hear SOL, that's what I think of. This is actually a pretty neat flashlight. You're going to see some B-roll that we shot at night rolled into this video. This isn't the most powerful little flashlight, but here's what's really cool with it is that, of course, you got to figure out how to open the dang thing. So you'll see some B-roll again on this when we ran it at night, but it's a plasma lighter, so you should be able to see it there. Very effective at starting fires, so kind of a neat dual purpose guy. Again, it's not crazy bright, but when you see the B-roll from nighttime, actually does pretty well. So the next one after that, the let's see here, Warriorland WL1. So that's this guy here. And I think I misspoke because I said I was going to show you some of my favorites. This is not one of my favorites. It's pretty big and bulky, number one. I'm not carrying this thing in my pocket. And the performance at night, not spectacular. Obviously, it's really hard to tell here picking up from the camera on my laptop. But I wouldn't personally recommend this flashlight, especially for the price. There's other stuff close to that really outperforms it quite nicely. So the next one up, the Acebeam E70. So that's this guy here. Looks wise, this is it's decent looking. It's neat. It's got, as you can see, some blue anodized material inside. I do like how the end of it is serrated. Great tool. Again, if you have to smack somebody with it. The only complaint I have with this, and it's a complaint I have with a lot of flashlights, is I just want to hit the button and turn it on. You see this? I just want to hit the button and turn it on. Doesn't work that way. This is counterintuitive in that you have to double click it to turn it on, single click it to turn it off. I would think it would be the other way myself. Out of all my pocket EDC tactical flashlights, this is not one of my favorite. It's decent, it's okay, but I wouldn't carry it over some of the other ones here. So this is one of my favorite pocket EDC flashlights, and this is the Acebeam T35. I see they just had a recent price drop on it, $59. It's super bright, and as you may have noticed, I clicked it once and it turned on. That's the way flashlights should be. You shouldn't have to, rub your belly, pat your head, say 3 Hail Marys, and flick it 10 times to get it to turn on. And some flashlights are like that, not very user friendly. Again, this one here, the Acebeam T35, one of my very most favorite pocket EDC flashlights. Another one that's one of my favorites, and it's a little bit pricey. This is the WOFT pocket EDC flashlight at $130. A little bit smaller, not quite as strong, but this is a good universal size, whether people have big or small hands, and it just works. And Philip put a lot of time and effort into this as far as the design is concerned. Again, a little bit on the pricey side, but that money goes towards his amazing facility, WOFT.com, WOFT.com. You'll see the performance of this at night when I roll in, put in the B-roll, pardon me. Pretty decent tactical flashlight. Got another one here that's basically the same price as the Acebeam, and this is the Wuben WL1 or just L1, pardon me. I I can't stand this flashlight. This is not a pocket flashlight or a backpack flashlight. It's got two very hard to see buttons on the side when it's not light outside, and you barely have to touch it and it will turn them on and off. So I've carried this in my pocket before and thought, geez, my pocket's getting warm. Taken it out and it's turned itself on. The same things happen in my EDC and my get home bag sort of thing. It's not intuitive. I understand what they were trying to do. It has a magnetic base, idea being that you can set it down. Again, I'm trying to find the switches. So you can turn on this side light versus turning on the light on the end of the flashlight. This may actually have a purpose. Say if you're a mechanic and you want to set it, in the engine bay while you're working on a car or truck. With that being said, I'm not a huge fan of the Wuben flashlights in general. So moving on to the next category, backpack EDC, home vehicle flashlights. The Acebeam ones are pretty slick. As you can see, I've got quite a flashlight addiction, for lack of a better term. So all three of these from Acebeam, and they're slightly different in size, but the form factor is relatively similar. And what I like with the Acebeams, and again, I'm not carrying something like this in my pocket. They advertise these as potentially being pocket flashlights. Not for me. I mean, if you look at the size of this thing, it is not small, but good for EDC backpack, your home, your shop, your vehicle, those sort of things. The advantage that these guys have from a design standpoint, and I'm going to roll that B-roll in here shortly, that is that they have a floodlight as well as a very focused spotlight feature out of these guys. And at night, that focus spotlight it's really cool, really badass for lighting stuff up and making it easy to see. So I would say that the M2, these are the smaller ones, okay? The M2s and the M2X are the smaller ones. I like these because of the form factor more than this big one, which is the M1. And I don't know that I would pay $300 for one this big, but at $139, when you see the performance, again, I'm going to bring in the B-roll. You'll see it up in the corner. Performance is pretty decent. So moving on to the next one, the Wuben X1, and I get these guys mixed up. That's this guy here. So this flashlight has a built-in fan like the larger one. Surprisingly enough, it turns on pretty frequently. Here's the killer thing on this. When I first got this flashlight, I think they've had several different revisions of it. It took me the better part of a half hour to figure out how to turn it on the very first time because you had to go through these steps in order to, I guess, give it a basic programming. Super frustrating. I was not happy with regards to that at all. So this guy, for the most part, sits on the shelf in my office. I would not buy another one, especially at $143. Essentially the same price as the Acebeams that I just showed you, without the same level of performance. Wuben have this other little guy here called the X0, I guess. And I wouldn't carry this in my pocket. And part of the reason is why is you barely have to touch the top of it, as you can see, and it turns it on. That also makes it kind of you have to pay attention to where you put this in your EDC bag or your backpack because it's very easy to knock the top of it and turn it on. And then when you need it, it's dead sort of thing. But this is pretty slick. It's magnetic, so you can stick it to various things while you're working on it. I have used this before to clip it to the front of my jacket and be able to see what I was doing when I didn't have a headlamp available. It's kind of an interesting design, kind of so-so on it. It does the trick, but not my favorite flashlight out of all my flashlights. So here's some honorable mentions. And again, all of this stuff today is just my subjective opinion. You may have a different experience. That's okay. I'm just sharing these flashlights and what my experience has been with them. So the Psionics IR illuminator, infrared illuminator. So as you can see, that's on, but it's non-visible infrared light. this casts a huge field of illumination when you're wearing night vision. So I've got some B-roll footage that I shot with this little Acaso Seymour 200. You may recall seeing these on Survival Dispatch Academy. I want to say they're around $189. It way overperformed for what it was. The only reason I used this when I captured the B-roll for the IR stuff is that it's really, really hard to capture footage through a PVS 14 that, you know, isn't set up with a Bluetooth connection to capture that. So I did it on this. You'll see from the B-roll that the Psionics illuminator did a great job. Something cheaper, which has worked well for me. This is, you know, cheaper Chinese stuff. Tough Sole, it's called. This mounts to the top of a pick rail. And the reason I've used this one before for a weapon mounted light is that the height is typically below the viewport of an optic like an EOTech or Holosun, whatever your preference is. But the performance is outstanding for such a small IR illuminator. So if you're into night vision, you don't want to spend a lot of money at you know, this price point here, not a bad choice. We'll mention, let's see, so weapon mounted lights, I've got a ton of them, as I'm sure everybody else does. This is not a firearm. This is a training rifle from Unit Solutions, the U4. But my training rifles are set up the same way as my real guns are. The configuration, the optics, everything is the same. Same angled foregrip, same laser on this side, same pick rail on this side for a pec deck for night vision. But I run the Inforce flashlights on all of my SBRs. And one of the reasons, you'll notice when I click on that, and that's my microphone there, you don't hear it clicking. They're silent. So if you did have an intruder and you wanted to turn it on while you were, say, pointing at the ground or somewhere they wouldn't see, they won't hear you even turn the flashlight on. Not a big deal to most people, but just a small consideration. Solar light. So we have all kinds of solar lanterns, but this guy here from X-Torch is my all-time favorite solar flashlight. So you see it's got a solar panel on it. It has a USB port on the side, so you can use the power that's stored up in it to charge your phone, whatever the case may be. Is that better? It's really easy to operate. Again, you don't have to rub your belly, pat your head, and say 3 Hail Marys to get the dang thing to turn on. It's one button, turns it on low, turns it on high, and then turns on the side one. So you can set it down and have an area light for that. Price is fair and decent. You'll see it's got 4 bars of power, by the way. I have never plugged this in. This has only been charged by access or direct sunlight, I should say. All right. So the next group of flashlights are kind of interesting. So this one here, pretty cheap from Saber. Again, these things aren't necessarily meant to just be a flashlight. They all seem to have in like that 150 lumens type range of light, which is okay. But as you can see, pretty powerful stun gun. And I've got a couple other ones here. The Diablo from Guard Dog. I got this because Philip from WOFT has had really good luck with their products. You'll see that it's got, you know, a few different light settings on it. Wasn't terribly expensive. And, you know, that's not going to tickle either. Some of you may remember seeing me getting hit with the gloves from Compliant Technology, which is for law enforcement. Ever since then, I've had zero desire to be shocked. This one here is from a company called Pain Safari. Price is really good. Tell you one of the things I like with it is that it has a safety switch on the bottom. More than once, I've picked up the Guard Dog to show it to somebody and accidentally hit the stun button. So this guy here, you'll see that I can hit the button, doesn't do anything. I can turn it on, doesn't do anything. But as soon as I flick the safety switch, bam, it's active. So these aren't necessarily devices that you would buy because of the flashlights, but these are good. I take them with us when we walk our dogs at night. just in case I needed something less lethal. Of course, I carry pepper spray with me as well, and a pistol, but I'd like to have less lethal options with me while I'm doing that. Here's a really neat one, and this got sent to me, I want to say 3 years ago or so. Rovivon is the name of the company. If you take a close look at it, you'll see that it's got lots of wear and tear on it. This little guy, the battery seems to last forever. It's rated 650 lumens. Uh, I can't attest to that because I don't have a meter to measure lumens. What I can tell you is it's extremely bright. It lasts forever. Can go on my keychain. My keys can go in my pocket, and it doesn't accidentally get turned on and drain the battery. 22 bucks on Amazon. Probably the best keychain flashlight I've encountered in my entire life. So that's kind of like the overview of some of the flashlights in my collection, pros and cons of each of them. Again, as of this coming Monday, Survival Dispatch News will be off on its own channel. If you could go on over there and subscribe, there's a link down below. We'd appreciate it. When you support our channel sponsors like William Tell Archery, that allows us to do a lot of high quality videos. A lot of this stuff, like for example, this flashlight, I paid for out of my own pocket, and the money that the sponsors share with us allows us to get stuff like that tested out. Honestly, if somebody had told me the shortcomings of the MS18 before we shelled out, we paid 700 for it. It just dropped to 669. Probably wouldn't have bought it. Survivaldispatch.com. We just launched a new version of our website last night. It's got a complete new look. It's very modern and much faster than it was previously. Go ahead, check that out. And before we wrap up this video, let's talk about our conflicted question. So here we go. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and Venezuela have declared war against the United States due to the death of the dollar, which has led to a complete collapse of the global monetary system. They blame the US government for ruining the global financial markets and are using propaganda to get support from their own people. Your country's president has gone on TV and declared that there are rough times ahead and that all citizens need to prepare for World War III. What would you do after hearing that? Well, I would tell you what we would do. We have property in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and we would be very quickly evacuating from Florida. It's, as my wife says, it's too peoply out here in Florida, and heading to the mountains. We've got all kinds of stuff stored there. We've got a trailer full of stuff here that we can hook onto and jet on a moment's notice. So we would just put into plan our bug out plan. And I recognize not everybody has a bug out location or a bug out plan. And I will mention one thing somebody brought to my attention a few years ago. Brilliant idea. If you live in the city and you have a storage unit, you might want to consider renting a storage unit out of town. Put your stuff out of town, go visit that town, that rural area where you have it, and load it up full of preps. And if you have to escape the city and you're already paying for storage, it doesn't cost you anything extra to have a storage unit out of town. That could be your primary shelter full of all the stocked up items you need for a Teotihuacan situation, the end of the world as we know it, or an SHTF situation. Anyway, that's it for today's episode of Survival Dispatch Academy. Again, please follow our new channel, Survival Dispatch News, link below. Be safe out there.